Software was built for a variety of reasons. The first is we were interested in how data is stored, then how data is retrieved, and then how data is understood. So the fundamental analysis module is where it all started, which is measuring the edges and nodes within a graph database, trying to figure out, you have a lot of you guys are obviously web and SEO guys. A lot of people are always trying to do content clusters or hub and spoke or whatever they want to call it, but they're realizing that interlinking content, just writing content's not enough. Interlinking it and how you engineer that interlinking is important. And we found that algorithms have a certain expectation as to what needs to be covered in order to be authoritative. So one of the questions I always ask people is like, what does authority mean to you? And they usually respond with, some sort of combination of brand and expertise and business listings. If you're doing local SEO, there's a variety of things that people will say. But to Rob and I, from the data perspective, I was kind of tired of just hearing, hey, authority, authority, authority. I was like, what is authority? So what is authority to a machine? It's just a definition or a golden standard in a database. And so then it came, can we extract that somehow? Can we get it out or can we have it spill its guts so that we have an idea of what that footprint looks like? So that analysis tool, and we can run a report together, I can share screen on the software, is measuring those edges and nodes, and it's giving you, a footprint that the machines expect to see. So if you're trying to build topical authority around something, and again, it doesn't have to be a website necessarily. These are the topics or what would we call it? Like a glossary of terms that are huddled together. So when Google's ranking content, you have, I guess we call them embeddings. You have scores that are being given to each word, and then those embeddings live in an embedding space. So this is how humans and machines kind of translate. Like we were just working with a big brand the other day. They do baby monitors, Nanit, like $300 million webcam type company, basically, but they monitor your baby. And one of the things that we noticed was, well, the machines and what they think of baby monitor is very different than we human beings typing in, hey, we need a baby monitor for our baby. They actually call it infant surveillance, which was a fascinating thing because it's, if I'm a dad here with two young girls, and if someone came up to me trying to sell me infant surveillance, I'd be whoa, like that's weird. Get away from me, buddy. That's just an odd term, but that's how the machine classifies it because it's far more precise to call that top level idea infant surveillance versus baby monitor. So Rob can speak to this too, but like if we go out on the web and we search for baby monitor, that's being converted in that embedded space. That's being converted to the machine's language, and the machine's like, oh, they want infant surveillance products. And then it's coming back to the user as baby monitors. So it's not necessarily data based off of just the SERPs, right? Most of these SEO tools that exist, SEMrush, SEMrush, Ahrefs, Ahrefs, however you pronounce these tools, I don't know. They're very focused on SERPs, search engine result pages. They're not paying attention to how the machine understands it, how it stores it, how it retrieves it. So that analysis module is a core feature because it's extracting those edges and nodes. It's finding the closest, when we talk semantic, this is the definition of semantic because it's that footprint that it expects the idea to have. So when people ask, well, what should I be doing with this data from the analysis report? I would be structuring, and again, it depends on what your goal is. Either structuring your website sitemap, you have a new customer, I don't know if they're home services or something like that. The topics for that home service, those would be the pages that the topics that you should be covering. So it's a little bit more of a 10,000 foot view than the matrix. The matrix is much more of a DNA type analysis of the content. So it's really your blueprint for, again, a complete website, a new division or department or a product or service that you're launching, a new campaign. Maybe it's an ad campaign or a drip email sequence. But those topics that come up in that analysis report are the expected, you know, sister, brother, sister type relationships in the database. And that's what the machine wants to hear and see because if you match that footprint, then you're going to be proving to the machine that you have authority on that topic. And then once you have proven that you have authority on that topic, you'll be recommended. And when I say recommended, I mean on Google, voice, pay per click, whatever system it is, that footprint is a universal machine understanding footprint. So it's just how it's the architecture, the infrastructure of how you would want to design a new, again, new brand, a new expansion, a new whatever. And the only thing I'll speak to is when you're using the tool, I always use I say 25, and let me share screen. This is gonna make most sense to just share. Let me know if you can see my screen okay.
Yes.
All right. So I always suggest that can you give me a keyword or something you guys are working on? Concept.
Uh, yeah. Just say bounce house rentals.
So my suggestion to everyone, no matter if you're local or national brand, start off with retrieving the 25 closest nodes. As you could run a report that does 200, but obviously it's going to take the human element to differentiate when the AI starts to drift or when it's not pulling the closest nodes because it's better to do the reports in smaller chunks because it's far more accurate than if you do hundreds at a time and then it's up to you to determine, well, is that really a close idea to bounce house rentals or not? So the other reason I suggest 25 and 5 is you guys are SEO guys. You know Bruce Clay?
Yes, but not personally, but yes.
Yeah, Bruce
Yeah.
Clay has a fantastic article, and it's a thesis on disambiguation for machines, and he suggests that there's 5 points of data necessary to disambiguate an idea. So unless it has 5 things to reference, the machine isn't fully confident, and he's suggesting that's the bare minimum. So when we talk about the math behind this, we were like, well, if 5 is the minimum to disambiguate, then how would you make sure you're overcompensating and break that math? Well, 5 fives is 25. So we just say, hey, a really good strong start for anyone doing anything would be to have 25 nodes, and for each of those 25 nodes, 5 nodes, because it maths, the math works. So let me generate this report and we'll open it up. And the bounce house rental business is awesome, super busy, super profitable. Do you guys own companies or do you have clients that are in that niche?
We have quite a few clients in that niche.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually an events guy. I came out of the events industry, so it's a good example. Hits home.
Oh, okay.
I'm best known for selling the red carpet that you see on TV. That's where I've made my big impact. But then COVID caused me to pivot into a lot more digital. So
Awesome.
this first page, the nodes and edges, is essentially just showing you the word you entered, showing you the primary nodes, and numbering them, right? The
Hmm.
quick, easy place to look is just the blueprint side because it's going to really break down the topic scientifically for you. So if you're going to have authority on bounce house rentals, you're going to launch a new site or you're going to take over somebody's existing site, my suggestion to you guys would be these would be your core content pages. Because they're nodes connected to that bounce house rental, it would be in your best interest. And you could decide, hey, some of these I don't want, of course, but it would be in your best interest to have a page on each of these topics because, again, it comes back down to that data science level of the footprint. If you show that you have a glossary covering all of these topics to the machines, they're going to say, wow, this company knows all about, you know, bounce houses and they're obviously an authority and now we can recommend them in whatever the user's search is. So these pages, I would have a page on inflatable rentals. Now, obviously inflatable rentals is what? Probably a higher tier concept because you might have something that's not just a bounce house. I don't know. You might have one of those, what are they? The bulls, right? The mechanical bulls that has inflatable, or you might have a water park or a floating one. So I feel like inflatable rentals, the reason it's connected to bounce house is it's probably one level up. So then when you look at inflatable rentals, well, on that page, or if you were going to make a content cluster about inflatable rentals, what would you talk about or what would you cover? The ideas you would cover party rentals, event rentals, moonwalk rentals. I have no idea what a moonwalk rental is. Is that maybe thinking like those moonwalk shoes? Bouncy castles, of course, water slide rentals. So inflatable rentals is the most important topic to talk about if you're talking about bounce house rentals. And then what do you talk about to, again, build authority and trust? You're going to talk about party rentals, event rentals, moonwalk rentals, bouncy castles, and water slides. So as we go down this list, you can, again, depending on how you use the software, you could say to it, hey, I'm going to, I want more than just 5 ideas to include on this page. These would probably, between you and Rob can jump in if he wants to, but if I'm building my new bounce house rental site, again, I'm probably having this as a full page, inflatable rentals, and then on that page, organically tied into my headings, I might have a section talking about party rentals and a section about event rentals and a section about the moonwalk rentals. And those become core elements of that page or core sections of that page because those are the closest, most important nodes to inflatable rentals. So if you were starting a brand new brand, I would pop a page for all of these. And you might, again, say, oh, I don't want to do water slide rentals. That's a pain. My client doesn't want to do water slide rentals. But there's also the whole contra-competitive theory to something or inclusion of something that you don't want. You could easily say on your page, we don't do water slide rentals. But by acknowledging the fact that by the fact that you've acknowledged water slide rentals, now the machine says, well, there's still an expert in this, area because they've mentioned that it even exists. If you don't mention that it exists, they might say, well, I don't know if this company knows everything because they didn't mention water slide rentals. So there's that whole theory where it's like you just need the information there because if the footprint's there, then the machine categorizes you correctly because I think most people's problem out there right now in the world is that they're just invisible to the algorithms. Like when Google had all their leaks, you have what? You have 400 billion pages in the active Google index, and you have over 10 trillion pages and documents that are known documents and pages that have been crawled, but Google doesn't include in that active index. So when you do the math and you divide 10 trillion and 400 billion, you get 4%. 4% of content actually gets included in the index. Now, we're not talking front page Google results. We're just talking literally being in the index to be a recommendation. So, just most of the content and stuff that exists out there isn't even accessible because it's just not in the active index. So, you really have horrible odds. And that's why SEO is as you guys know, it's such an ongoing fight to not only rank but stay ranked as things change. And so taking this approach, focusing on those nodes when the boat rocks, because the boat's always rocking, right? It's always up, it's always down, there's always a new algorithm update. But if you stick to that edge and node theory, much like you guys, I think you're all SM guys, right? Semantic mastery. And I was too, and I became a student of Rob's on schema and all that. So we are all based out of the same training. And if we take that training to this data science level, no matter what they do to the algorithms, you become, I don't want to say unshakable, but far less shakable because you are hitting that exact footprint that the machines expect you to hit, right? So when they decide that, hey, if your brand has a Yelp account or not for your bounce house rental company, and that's more important, you might all of a sudden take off or you might all of a sudden tank. But if you have your content structure perfect for the machines, regardless of whether they weigh a Yelp profile more today than they did yesterday, your brand isn't getting rocked. And I'm sure you guys have, if you've been in SEO for all these years, you know what I'm talking about, where like one update can all of a sudden just turn everything on its head. If you take this approach, it's just far more stable no matter what they're doing, no matter how they're weighing the algorithm. You kind of stand the test of time because you are authoritative. You have the correct nodes and the correct topics to maintain your authority no matter how else they're pushing that algorithm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, the question for you is that just from a scalability standpoint, because we've got so many clients and we're in several different verticals,
yep.
but just for bounce houses, just for party rental companies in general, the scalability, because as you know, for us to create a page for each individual primary node, it's just not scalable. What would you suggest for something like that when we're trying to still rank, get visibility for, obstacle course and the bounce houses, the moonwalks, the water slide rentals? Uh, Any suggestions on what you perceive as how we would structure that content when we really, because basically what we're doing now is we're doing location based, so it's location, whether it's for like Austin, right? And then we're building a location page and we're making that page in different sections about, the different things that we're targeting in for that client to rank for Austin, for the Austin area.
When you say
This is all
location page,
great,
just so I
but it's
better
just that
understand, are you saying like, this page is Bounce House Rentals Austin, and that's the Austin page that talks about Bounce House Rentals
it's
in that
it's not.
geolocation?
We've gone even further. I don't know if you've been in the semantic, with Bradley and all that, but we've gone into more of the entity based, and we're looking at the top level entity in Wikipedia, and like for bounce houses, it's inflatable castles. It's the general word for everything that falls under it for bounce houses, moonwalks, and things like that. And the question I have is, this is all great if we just can't scale it from a content standpoint. Build every page, an inflatable page and a birthday party page and blah 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 and blah blah. We just can't do that from a
Why do you feel you
scalability.
can't do that?
Huh?
Why do you feel you can't do that?
Well, just because of the bandwidth of our team from a content and the web development part,
Okay.
you know, yeah, that's where we're up against is from a bandwidth standpoint from content and also and Brian is our web dev manages the web dev team and that's a it's an ongoing issue, and we only have so many people. And when you got 200 plus people just in bounce houses, roughly, it's a tough call, to be
Sure.
able
Well,
to do
maybe I can
something.
alleviate it for you. So I'll tell you exactly how I would handle it, and I'll even show you a
Sure.
feature that can probably help you out to go much faster. So the cool part is if you have 200 bounce rental companies, the footprint that you have to develop for each one is very, very similar. So once you
Sure.
have a solid foundation of, let's just say, those core 25 pages, it would just be a matter of slightly spinning them, obviously paying attention to geo locations, obviously paying attention to maybe some of their unique offerings. But I don't think that you should feel like you're reinventing the wheel. I think it's very much a beautiful thing where you could have some core pages in this industry that you then could kind of, I don't want to say copy paste, because of course you have to add a little bit more variety to it. But for sure, from a scalability standpoint, I have some suggestions for you. So in Content Maxima, under settings, we have this little mode called Mork mode. One of our customers, Jeff Mork, he's a semantic mastery guy. You probably maybe have seen his name before. Um, he wanted us to keep outlines because when we first started the software, we thought we might do content writing for people, but we quickly realized that's just not the direction we wanted to go into. There's a million AI writers, content writers. It's just really just a cesspool we didn't want to enter. So, but we did keep this feature. So this bounce house report that I just ran out of analysis, you can come in here and you can choose that file. Let's see. And you can generate outlines for yourself. And what it'll do is it'll go down that column of the primary nodes and it will generate you a content outline for each one. And it does it very, very fast. It's going to do 25 outlines. We'll see. We'll give it a second to be done. And then once you have these outlines, then I would say to you, every agency owner I've ever talked to, they have a different SOP for how they write. Some of them use, one software and some of them use another software in their stack. Like I personally have had a lot of success with ZimWriter as an AI writer. There's a bunch of more out there, but I find ZimWriter is exceptional at allowing you to really build some beautiful, unique content at scale. So in here, it's taken each of the nodes that were in that analysis report, and if you click into one of these cells, I'm just going to put it in Notepad so it's easier for you to view, but it's actually an entire comprehensive outline on that subject matter. So if you were like, well, gosh, how am I possibly going to write 25 articles? Well, just in a matter of seconds here, you now have a starting point. I don't think you take this 100% verbatim without any work. But again, if you were trying to take away the work for you guys to make this scalable, so you have 25 outlines now. Now, whatever your writing process is, maybe you do a little bit of AI, maybe you use actual writers, maybe you use VAs. Everybody's different. I'm not going to tell you there's a secret recipe to writing content because there's really not. We all know there's a million ways to do it. However, you can quickly get the nodes that you need, quickly get the outlines that you need, and hand this off to your writer or hand it off to your AI setup or, your software setup. And you should very quickly be able to generate those 25 pages in a way that's going to be very, very effective for your clients. And again, these 25 outlines, I would be using them as a just a starting point for any bounce house rental company that you're working with. And once you have those 25 beautifully written pages, then it would just be a matter of again adding that variety and bringing in some of those other words. My next suggestion on that will move us to the other module if that's okay. We'll run a matrix report on this quick.
Let me jump in just real quick, Ed.
Yeah, you got it, Rob.
So, yeah, yeah. So you know me, I'm lazy, right?
Yep.
I like to do the least stuff as possible, right? So my first thought would be if you're only writing one page for like each location, let's say, then instead of writing that, if you don't want to start with 25, just make sure however many you do, let's say you do five of them, we'll make sure the other nodes are at least sections in the page, like the higher level page, right? So you at least have a section covering each of those, if that makes sense. So you could, just have a little section for each one of those 25 nodes if you're only going to write one page to start with. And if I'm going to say the market, right? Like a page in Austin is probably going to be harder to rank than a page in, I don't know, what's a little bitty tiny town somewhere, right?
Hutto, Texas. Yeah, Hutto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
could probably just throw up a page that's got these as headers. And if there's no other uh, competition there, you're going to rank, right?
Yeah, touche.
So you don't necessarily, so as you got to, some of it is, there's a little bit of, I'm data analytical biochemist, blah, blah, blah. So I'm all about data. But then the business side of me is like, yeah, but do I really need to use all this every time? Right. So you could start if, where just have each of these as a subsection. So you got kind of like your boiler point, and then you got so if you do bounce house rental page, then within that have a little bit on inflatables, parties, kind of cover each of those in that one page for that city. And if there's not tons and tons of competition in that city, right, you may not need all 25 pages on a site. But if you get into a city then where you've got 75 people all trying to get all the same rankings, right, then the competition becomes harder. So then you may need to start, let's focus in. And if one of these, right, and we're not going this from a, let's see, what's the right term? The volume, right? But let's say if these top three have more search volume, then maybe the next step, if one page doesn't work with these sections, right, then you slowly, as you send it out, you get the data back. Are we ranking? If yes, do nothing else. Always a bunch of if thens. If one page ranks in this city, do nothing else, right? If doesn't, and we're stuck down in here, right? Then maybe split it out to I talk about bounce house rentals, and then also have sub pages of inflatable, party, and moonwalk. If those are like the higher search volume terms, then you got those three pages, and you start to scale it out as needed based on competition. That would be my if I was doing it and I didn't want to just start with all 25, that would kind of be my next step. Like, if that makes sense. Is that kind of it sort
Yeah.
of splits the difference, right? Because again, you might not need 25 pages and blog articles and all that stuff for a page where there's nothing. Um, so
Well, I
Yep.
mean, so I'll step in there. So like right now for the way we do things, obviously with Bradley's training and all that, we noticed like the over optimization is a major killer. That's why we went semantic and entity SEO.
mhm,
It works, and then on the way that we build out these pages, of course, because they have rentals. So each one of those primary nodes, for the most part, is a category. So basically, the way these pages are built is all of those are headings anyway in the store
mhm,
section on the page. And then each
okay.
one of those categories have content on their page. So those are inherently already built in. Some of those 25 already already somewhat there. And what I started doing since I had Content Maxima, I only had it for like a week or whatever, but that's what I was doing is I was taking the primary nodes and we were making sure that those were included in headings on the dumpster side or the party rental side. And then uh some of those are obviously have their own page just based on the categories. Because I know
Yep.
Bradley did when he did his demo, it was the same thing with tree. Everything with him was trees. So
Yeah, yeah.
tree trimming, tree, whatever, and all that. That was all of the actual service pages anyway. Like Bradley calls it. Um,
Mhm.
and it was kind of the same thing. Me and Don just ran the roofing one. I think I did that the other night, and it was the same thing: roof inspection, roof, installs. So in reality, when you're building a site, some of these are built out. But yeah, a lot of those though, Ed, I mean, it would cannibalize itself if we had that many pages optimized. I mean, we could do on regular pages for sure. We just couldn't do it any city specific stuff, but a lot of that is on pages anyway. So that's perfect. That's good to know.
So let me
Definitely that
back up
content
real
outline
quick
that you
too.
just showed us is a huge time saver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me. I'm gonna to try to get our definitions right. Category page and page to me are the same thing, right? You're talking WordPress kind of specific lingo there, right? With a category because
No,
we say,
no, I'm sorry. It's so like let's say when I say category page, I'm speaking our terms. I'm sorry, not a category in WordPress. So these bounce house guys, party rental guys, like they'll have bounce houses as a category. They'll have a water
mhm,
slides a category, combos, tents, obstacle
mhm.
courses. A lot of those things that are on the primary nodes are quote unquote categories of items of products,
Yeah, yeah. So
That's
kind
where
of
the
like a
to
stores are at.
me,
service
Yeah,
of
that's
a
where the
plumber
store
or
is at.
something like that.
Yeah,
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 the store section. So
the
we
yeah.
have
store
Whether it's
content
section.
a
on all those pages.
Yeah, so whether it's a page in a e-com store, that's a category, or it's a WordPress category, or it's right when we talk about pages, I'm just talking about you got a URL that covers that topic
Got it.
Yeah,
in a
non-geo
way,
specific.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it
non-geo
doesn't have to
specific. Yeah,
be, yeah, non-geo, it could be whatever, as long
yeah,
as you've got it in your website. What happens, a
yeah.
lot of people don't put they don't get all these covered. Now, the fact you guys have been focused in on this one niche, I guess you would say, right? And you
Yeah.
know it very well, you're like, yeah, this makes sense. We kind of already have this. And I would expect that, being that you're already ranking some sites and you've been in this niche enough that you've come across most of these terms, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
So how are you guys? I know you were talking about at the beginning, Ed, about the internal linking of those nodes. Like, what is your strategy of using those nodes as the anchor text? I mean, I just been kind of varying it, kind of the like the primary nodes that comes out of the report. I just
Hmm.
been kind of doing different variants of that on different pages that kind of give the machines a little different. Or y'all just hammering away at the same thing?
No, you definitely want the difference because of that whole embedding space and embeddings that I was talking about. Like if I say, like an interchangeable word for something, you know, uh, what's my example? Like Jaguar, right? If I say Jaguar, do I mean the cat or do I mean the car, right? In that embedding space, it's kind of like a window based on my behavior, if I happen to be mentioning tires, it's gonna know, hey, he's talking about the car Jaguar. If I happen to mention, I don't know, rainforest or something, it's gonna know I'm talking about the big cat. So to your point there, you for sure want to have, synonyms and long tails and variations. You don't want to just hammer the one word over and over again because we know that it looks false. It looks rigged to the algorithms. You know, it looks like you're trying to manipulate it if you're constantly using that same keyword over and over and over again. Just like if you were link building, you would want a variety of links coming in with different terms, you know, not just bounce house rentals, but, you know, inflatable party rentals and inflatable castle and all these other terms, you know, bounce house for a party, some of those longer ones, because it'll pick up that meaning. And again, as long as those meanings are falling in that embedding space, then it understands what you're talking about, and it comes across more natural. So for sure, you want to be using the variety. How would I link? I think, gosh, it just depends on the website setup. I know, I'm sure with semantic mastery, Rob, and you can jump in on this too. Obviously, there's different strategies. There's people who do, you know, like link wheels. There's people that do not wheels, but more like hub and spoke, right? That are not necessarily wheeling it, but they go out to dead ends, which isn't always best because you can kind of cut your link equity or juice or stop it. So I think there's a lot of linking strategies. Again, your theme and how it stacks, especially on like e-commerce. You guys know this if you have different categories, if you have like product information and then there's stuff in your footer, or if the category page you have has information that carries over to each product listing as they're going through it, you know, paying attention on how all that stuff stacks is important too. Hopefully that answers your question with linking.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't. I really wasn't asking about like your strategy. I just meant like the anchor text. I know there's about 80 ways to skin that cat on how to link.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just trying to give our team something, So I mean, we got to give the content guys, what anchor text we want to use. But yeah, if you want to go that matrix thing, that'd be cool.
Yeah, so I think the
Kind of went sideways.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say another great spot to get some of those synonyms or other words to use. I would come in here because these trigger words are what the algorithm's expecting. So, you know, natural language processing rules the world. It runs every piece of big tech, and that was what we found out in our research was okay, no matter if I'm doing, you know, if I'm typing, if it's copy, if it's written word, if it's spoken word, if I'm talking to my assistant or talking to AI now, they're transcribing my spoken word into written word so that it can be analyzed the exact same way. Same thing in videos, right? Videos and images, they're pulling the text and the entities out of those things now. So it all goes back to natural language processing. So natural language processing is this technology nobody talks about. It's existed way longer than AI. In fact, it is AI, but it wasn't called AI years ago. So this is 63 other language analysis types that are just as powerful and just as integrated as natural language processing that all of big tech is using. Now, we have some really good estimates as to which platforms using which analysis types. But of course, they're never going to give away their secret sauce and say, hey, this is the exact process, or these are the five that we use out of these 63. So running all 63 it gives you a ton of content ideas, number one, a ton of anchor text ideas if that's what you're looking for. But most importantly, when we come over to this trigger words section, this is really giving you that DNA level analysis of the most important words and phrases that are a part of that content. And so each of those categories we were just talking about, inflatable castle, you know, inflatable water ride or inflatable bull ride, like each of those you could run through Matrix then and come up with a huge, you know, handful of long tails that you can use, a variety of synonyms, all that kind of stuff. So we recommend that if it's appearing in 10 or more of the analysis types, then we're really on to something with what the machine's expecting. So I would be sprinkling these words throughout your content, throughout your marketing, your social posts, your GBP, like all of that. If you get these words in there, this is at a far, far more granular level than that analysis report. And it's really just giving you the DNA of, you know, what makes up that topic. So I would probably run each one of your categories, each one of your inflatable types through here, have that report accessible, and then it's literally just a copy paste list. Like with my marketing assistant, I have a team of a couple VAs. Like I'm not always giving them the report. I'll literally just be like, hey, when you're helping me optimize my page or when you're writing my social post or whatever, like use this list of words. Keep it as the list that we just kind of constantly want to mix in. Of course, you could take these words then and find more synonyms for them because the way these machines understand now, they understand meaning. It's not just keywords anymore. So, yeah, these lists would be a great place to get those anchor texts to uh, sprinkle throughout any type of post that you're doing, any article you're doing. And it doesn't matter if it's at that super macro or super micro level, it's just what it expects. Like if you're going to be a recommendation, it wants you to see or it wants to see these from you in order to recommend you. Anything you want to add to that, Rob?
Yeah, I was gonna. Well, okay, I'm not muted. So basically, what's happening under the hood here? So like when people like we talked about entities, right? That's one that everybody talks about. What are the entities related to this term, right? So we went through and there's those language analysis reports. There's 63 of them, and we said, well, what are all the I'll stick with the word entity. What are all the terms? What are all the connected entities? What are all the things based on if you're thinking of it from a node edge relationship? If you're thinking of it from a, I don't even know what all 63 of them are called, from a cross relational type of relationship between the terms. If you're talking about it from a, dependency, right? If you're talking about it from semantics or co-occurrence or these different analysis, these are basically just additional language model processing that machines do to understand terms. So if you can kind of you try to get um, these terms built into your site, because whether we provide a service or not, the machines think these services are somewhat related, right? Now we may not do, like I saw DJ services. We may not provide DJ services, right? Because that kind of seems odd. But a lot of times, if you step back and you think, well, what is the machine thinking? Well, it's thinking, well, if someone's renting something for a party, they're probably also going to have music. And sometimes when they look for music, there might be DJ services, right? So the databases and the different computer systems and large language models tie those together closely in embeddings versus they're not far apart, right? So this is where kind of that art part of science comes in, right? We know all these terms are there, but we may not want to hammer DJ services, obviously, because we don't provide that. But you could say, if you're having a party and you got, and people, kids love to listen to music while they're on the bouncy houses. And, hey, one of our bouncy houses has speakers. So you could plug in your DJ services into the speakers and the kids could be listening to music while they're playing, right? Just semantically throw in the terms that the machines think are related, kind of like right, when we think of baby monitor, we're not thinking infant surveillance, but by just adding that term that the machine already thinks, well, wait, I classify this as infant surveillance. This company also classifies it as that. So they must really understand how all this stuff interlinks, right? You might not want to come out with infinite surveillance monitors because us as humans are like, what the hell? I don't want to be surveilled. But I mean, effectively, that's what we're doing is we're surveilling a baby. Well, here, if people are renting a bounce house, they're wanting to have a party. And at the end of the day, they're having a party of some sort. At a party, have you ever been to a party where there's not music? There's always, whether it's even just slight background music, but a lot of times if they're going all out and renting bounce houses, they're probably going to have a big cookouts. They're probably going to have music going on. A lot of times, if it's a big corporate event, they're going to probably have DJs. That's why all these terms, right? And you see tent rental, chair rental, table rental. Normally, people who are looking for that, the machines are expecting these same things in that same entity block, right? So you may not provide all these services. So sometimes you got to go with the art of this, right? You're not going to rent to your bouncy house with a tent rental anchor text, but this is just showing us how the machines think about the topic. And then we have to put on our hats of, okay, I understand how it's there. We can kind of work some of this stuff in, right? But like carnival games, right? You might not think of the, like one of the bounce houses, where they can run and they go through obstacles and they race. That's kind of like a carnival game because you see those at carnivals all the time, So you could say, turn your party into like a carnival game by renting the obstacle bouncy house or whatever. I don't know the terms of this market very well, so I kind of stuck in the same terms because I don't know all of them. But that's how I would start to try to weave some of these different concepts into my content. And again, like I said, if you got 300 websites, you got 25 each. Once you get the base of the paragraphs, and you can kind of work in the topics and kind of have a base set of pages that then you can modify. So that's how I look at this. And like when he was talking about trigger words, when you show that, okay, so we ran 63 different ways to look at this topic, and out of the 63, Ed, go back to the algorithm word,
Yeah,
right?
I was just going for you. There you go.
Yeah. So scroll. So like 59 of the 63 ways we looked at the term for bouncy house thinks inflatable rentals. So that's extremely connected, right? As you move down the list, they become less and less and less and less,
Yeah,
right? Like cable
cotton candy
rentals.
rental machine. Far less.
Yeah. It's far less related, right? Because only 9 of the 63 picked up that term when we looked at it so we're looking at them all individually, right? And each individual run isn't cross uh, excluding or including the others to give its output. But here, what we kind of did we tried to simplify because there's a shit ton of data there, basically, right? We tried to simplify it and say, well, if 63 different ways to look at this term comes up with 59 hits, I for sure better have inflatables on there, right? And what's the next? So like, okay, wedding rentals, right? Because of rentals, right? You're not going to be doing weddings, but the machines, when you start talking about bouncy houses, for some reason, they highly relate wedding rentals with bounce houses, right? I mean, that'd be a kick-ass wedding rental if you go to a wedding and at their thing they got, jousting, which I'm gonna,
I'm sure
I
some
laugh at
bride and
that.
groom or couples have done that for sure. I'm sure they
Oh
have.
yeah, well, here's the funny part, right? So my daughter just got engaged, and one of the things she's saying, because she's 20, we're not 20s anymore, but back when we were 20, could you imagine how awesome it would be to go to reception after a thing and have she wouldn't have a bull riding machine. I'm like, no, honey, that's like the insurance. We're not getting insurance just for a reception for where we have to have insurance on a stinking bull riding machine, right? But I could see why these start to get done because you got a bunch of 20-year-olds or 30, whatever, they're wanting to have a freaking party. So they're probably going to be, I want bounce houses. I want a bull riding machine. I want DJs, right? So you can start to see how these are all interrelated. So that's kind of how you got to look at it, right? You still have to put on your art hat of this because SEO is as much science as it is art. Um,
So I want to add to that too, Rob, the art and science argument. So because you guys are SEO guys, you've probably heard of like Kyle Roof before.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So Kyle ran a test and I just pulled it up to see if it was still live because I expected like Google to shut it down. But he has done all sorts of wild tests on Google and Google's literally changed their algorithm because of him and him publishing about it. But one of the ones that still cracks me up to this day, it exists, is if you do rhinoplasty garden growth. So this proves, I want to show you this because it proves how outweighted the science is to the art. It's not that the art isn't important, for sure it is, but the science is overbearingly powerful. And so he has this, if you put in rhinoplasty garden grove, 50 search volume, that's a surfer plugin for their free keyword plugin, just to have some idea of what that's pulling. But look at this website. He comes up first, and I want you to see that this website, there's absolutely no reason that this should be ranking because look at this content. That's not even English. Yes, there's recognizable words in here, but those are entities that he's just planting into the text, those trigger words that cause the algorithm. Because the algorithm is really, let's be real, it's not really reading all of your content and understanding it and deciding you're a better writer than the next guy. No, 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 no. That to actually do that, the processing cost, the business cost is just far exceeds, what they can handle. I mean, heck, I told you there's 10 trillion documents on the web, but they only index 400 billion. They don't have a chance of even digesting all of this content. So what they're looking for are those footprints in the content. So if we look at this page and we start going through it, you'll see the geolocation, surgery, laser hair removal, but the general page, right? All of this is just, it's nonsense. It's not real content. Yet he's ranking number one and proving how entity focused it is. Now, of course, there's parts on here that are a part of building a reputable brand. Like he has an address and a phone number and he lists it and he gives it those trust factors. But if we're talking about the content itself, there's really no reason that this site should be outranking, you know, some of these other more reputable surgeons who actually have really well written content that's readable for the users, but he's hitting those trigger words to make if to force the algorithms to rank him over everybody else. So that's just like one example where we've seen it out in the wild of like, hey, that's entirely an entity manipulation. That's not quality content. Anybody who says helpful content and, help the user, I mean, what is this? Like, it's just the antithesis of what Google preaches.
Right. Yeah.
Just having the right words at the right spot.
That's it. I mean, that's it. Now, the other thing about this report that I think Rob and I can't express to you guys is when we first built the software. So Rob's first version was Python desktop, right? This matrix report, just to give you an idea of how complex this used to take, when we clicked the button go, 45 minutes to 60 minutes because it had to act as a different AI agent for each one of these columns, run the whole report, find all these words, and output them. Now we're getting it in seconds because Rob's been working a lot on programming, getting a lot better at it, and streamlined the whole software. But I think it's even hard to really appreciate not only the amount, but the quality of data that's coming out of this report. Because again, we used to wait an hour to get one of these and we were thrilled. We were like, oh, this is awesome. Now you get it in like 2 seconds. You almost don't even appreciate what it is. But I just want you guys to know that this is truly running. It's almost like software within software, right? Like it's
Mhm.
63 different agents and they all run their processes. But Rob's just, I don't know the right term, Rob, like hyper threaded it to go faster. I don't know what else to call it.
I'm just a nerd,
Yeah, I'm just a nerd.
basically. Now, on some of this, I'm going to back up here too. I want to throw something in here to you guys understand this topic, right? So you see these, you're like, okay, yeah, 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 yeah. This isn't anything new, right? But what some of the things when we were doing research on this, because you guys understand your stuff and you've been around the industry long enough for people that haven't. So we ran this for soccer, and Ed knows nothing about soccer. And some of the words that showed up here, he's like, what the hell does that word even mean? Right. And I'm deep in soccer. Like that's how I paid for my school. Like I'm ate up with it. So I'm like, well, that's just a common term that's in the soccer embedding space. If you don't have, if you don't know what that term is, I can say that one term and you don't know it, then I know you don't know soccer, right? So some of it's hard, it's kind of like, well, I kind of knew most of this. I knew that. I knew that. When we're looking at stuff because you guys have been researching this topic for who knows how long, right? So some of this may be like, okay, I know some of these, but you may, in digesting this data, find some terms like, oh, okay, I didn't realize the algorithms were thinking of it in this way, or the machines were using some of these terms to do it. So,
The term that you were thinking of too, Rob, just for these guys, what is it? Tiki taka. It's like a
yeah,
play
it's a
that
type of
you
soccer.
yeah, it's like a type of soccer play. And so I said to Rob, I go, well, I literally know nothing about soccer. I've never even like watched a game. And I said, like, if I came into a circle of players and was like, yo, guys, you want to run a tiki taka? Like they'd be like, yeah, sure. Like they would know what it is because they're all players. And I could almost like blend in like a chameleon because I dropped that one term that applies to them that I just would have no idea otherwise.
Yeah, so part of that is us trying to figure out all the different terms that these large language models replicate and make sure we're dropping those same terms in so we can hide as if we're an extreme authority, even though we may sometimes not know what the hell we're talking about,
Yeah.
right? Like, so when I say
Right.
nutmeg, right? And if I'm talking about soccer, do you guys know what nutmeg is in soccer, right? People know the spice nutmeg, but if you don't know what nutmeg is and you are trying to tell me you know something about soccer, then I'm like, no, you have no clue, dude. You don't even start talking to me, right? So we're you want to try to that's where we're saying build these in because the algorithms know that those terms are known in all the different and if you're an expert in that, you're going to somehow have this type of information somewhere within your content as well.
Right. Now, I know that we're getting kind of close on time. Are the other modules that you have, because you have extensive, and I've been through all of them, but what are the other ones that you feel would be important for us to be looking at other than just the matrix and the primary and secondary nodes? Any thoughts?
So yeah, the obviously the reason we covered analysis and matrix, those are our core offerings. Those are like the
Right.
most powerful powerhouses. The
Mhm.
other modules, not to say they're not powerful, because some of them are crazy powerful, but they're more in like our experimental category. We're hoping that customers like you guys can come to us after using them and say, "Oh gosh, I wish it did X, Y, and Z," or "Hey Ed, I'm using it for this now. Did you ever consider that?" And I'm like, "No, like maybe we can do something with that." So if you don't know your market or you're not sure, perspectives, well, I'm sorry, personas would be obviously self-explanatory. It's going to generate personas. One of the things that drives me crazy about AI though is like if I ask AI for give me 10 good personas to target for bounce house rentals, it's just going to give me 10 ideas. I don't know that those are the best ones or the most profitable ones, or I just don't know that it did it the amount of research that it should have. So what that one is doing is it's taking like 177 different perspectives. If you didn't, or persona perspectives, because I don't want to confuse it with the module we call perspectives, but it's helping you see where your money is, right? And we can run a report on that quick. Perspectives is like if you just run out of blog ideas, you're like, gosh, I don't know, or campaign ideas, I don't know what to talk about. I'm not feeling creative. I have a creative block. So perspectives generates like over 1,000 article or blog or topic ideas that reinforce your entities. It's for really those people who are going big on content, who just need more ideas and they're running out of ideas. You'll never run out of ideas with that just because it's generating so many of them. So you're saying what else would you use if you need like blog ideas for a client? I'd go into perspectives. If your
Mhm.
client doesn't know who they're targeting or they're not sure who the most profitable person to go after is, we would try personas, and we'll run that one quick just to see what Bounce House Rentals comes up with.
I can tell you, I got a customer journey. I forget which one that was in, but the customer journey, and I put that into a GPT. And I have to admit, it wrote some very good social media posts geared toward that particular persona.
The
I mean, I
whole
was
point of that
very
one.
impressed of what I saw that it wrote. It was right on point, speaking
Yeah,
to
Awesome. And
because
that
some
that's
of these
experience.
work together as well. So like you got your
Yeah,
persona, and you can say, okay, now I need to write things for that exact persona, and then it tries to mirror the topic and speak in a way to that persona where you meet them in
right,
the middle, right? And
right.
I'm going
Yeah,
to use
it did.
BLT because when Ed and I were testing this, we would run bacon, lettuce, tomato sandwiches a lot because it's
Right.
just some wacky thing, right? And the way that it would try to go about writing content, if you were saying, I want to write about BLTs, if I'm trying to target a broke college kid, was totally different than if you said BLTs and like a business guy, right?
yeah.
Because it'll come from respect of a business guy, then they're probably wanting like a fancy BLT that's going to be served at a dinner, and like you got business people. And if you talk about a college kid, it's thinking white bread, and literally just here's the three snacks, throw it on there, cheap, fast, easy, blah blah blah, right? So it you can work these together to do those type of things.
And
So
I'm so happy to hear you threw it into a custom GPT because ultimately, what's going to happen with our software, Rob and I already see this with our customers that we're working with. This is going to power people to create all different types of bots, content bots, press release bots, social posting bots, all of that. Like feeding a set. Like if you had a brand new customer, I would run each one of these files and get all six of them. And then I would, yeah, drop that into a chat or drop that into a custom GPT, and it'll be mind blowing what it does for you because now it has all that data to pull from, and whatever you thought you were, whatever job you thought you were doing a good job on it, like I've just been like jaw dropped at like how well it really does because it has these reports to go off of. Here's something
Absolutely.
interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe you
Yeah.
guys have seen this or not, but so in personas, when we say generate personas, there's over 3,500 different personas it generates from 177 different lenses. Think of it like changing a pair of glasses in and out. Like these shades have a blue tint to them, these ones have a rose, these ones are ultra blackout shades, these ones are VR shades. Like it's looking at all different angles and generates personas from each angle. So then we tally them all up because there's no like way to match keywords. We have to just find the most frequently occurring terms. So we put in semantic doubles, triples, quadruples, quintuples, just to show kind of where the focus of this market is. So like what's interesting about it, and you guys could tell us if we're wrong here or not of the data, but like most of your money is probably being made or people who are reaching out obviously event planners, event coordinators, event organizers, corporate events. It says weddings, so like if weddings are not something that you're targeting with bounce houses, well, you might as well start and see what comes from that because you might be leaving a lot of money on the table. Birthday parties, we already know is huge. Youth groups, festivals, and some of these are like you got to use a little common sense because of the way that they co-occur. So like leaders plus youth, well, what does that mean? It means youth leaders. Like you have to use the human element to decipher what it means by these. But yeah, we know that what AI, the very beginning of it, at least ChatGPT was trained on 15% of the net. So like 68 billion documents. Um, and so we force it to just kind of spill its guts, right? It's not, I don't want to just know the same 10 that you're going to tell every bounce house company. I want to know the stuff that's in there that you know about, but you're not just, upfront with it. So that's what this helps you do is just kind of find those new niche markets, those new really profitable areas. So obviously like a birthday parents party planning. Parents planning a birthday party. Those are the people that are occurring a lot here. In 10 of the brainstorming sessions, it seems that parents planning a birthday party are a great, customer for bounce house rentals. So that's a really powerful way to get new customers. Sorry, I got so many monitors going on. This is dragging out. Let me jump back here and just see what else. You said you did the pathways, which is nice because that allows you to focus on the entity that you want and then the persona. So to your point, if all of a sudden I don't know what to say to people who are having weddings, what the hell would I say to them? Like, why do they want to rent a bounce house? It's not a thought. You could throw in, people about to get married, right? Or weddings and see how the language should focus on that particular persona. And again, it's following all the stuff you've heard of before, like the Russell Brunsons and funnels and sales funnels and all of that. That's why it's laying it out for you in a way that's really nice to be able to just generate content with it, or at least engineer your message in a way that's going to resonate with that particular type of person. Um, Signatures came up in our research. We didn't even, excuse me, we didn't even know that something like this existed. So, linguistic signatures, the example I like to give everybody, if I say to you, Don, shiver me timbers, or I say, yar, who am I? A pirate, right?
Right, the part, yeah.
Pirate.
Yeah.
So,
Johnny Depp.
right. That's a linguistic signature. That means outside of pirates, if I go around town saying "Yar, shiver me timbers," it's not going to relate to anybody unless they're into pirates. Like they're going to say, "Oh, like what's up with this guy? He's talking like a pirate. What a weirdo." But those are the things we're looking for, no matter what your niche, no matter what your industry, product, service, doesn't matter. What are the things or those few words, the tiki taka and the nutmeg in soccer? Those are linguistic signatures. They're a part of the footprint that's so indisputable that the second you drop that word, it's like Don's an expert. Like without a doubt, he's an expert at that because he would never ever know to say yar unless he was truly a pirate. Like there's just no way he would know. So that module is just really helpful for cracking industries that are hard to crack and really get your content to stand out. So I think the other exciting part about this for Rob and I is obviously we could talk hours on each one of these modules, but I think the exciting part for us at this point is going to be you're asking how do you use this or what do we do with it? Like I don't know fully yet, right? I think that's some of the fun is it's like you guys are going to go off, you're going to use it for a while, and you're going to be like, Ed, I just did this and that, and I got this really killer result. And I'm going to say, wow, I never thought of that. So I'm super happy to hear you dumping stuff into custom GPTs and bots and that sort of stuff. I think there's a massive opportunity outside of SEO because, again, this ties into social, this ties into AI itself, it ties into the training material that you can, develop around a different product or niche. And I mean, we're even on our end experimenting with just what you were talking about. Like I have this bot here, it's a custom GPT, but it converts our Content Maxima files into marketing material. So I can take, you know, the matrix and analysis and a persona or a pathway and just dump it in here and start, and it can say to me, hey, like, what do you want to do? You know, you want to write a landing page, you want to, I can do a market analysis with this. I can help you write a drip email sequence. I can help you do all of these things. And I know that the message that comes out of it is going to be so tailored to that particular part. And I think the cool part is the scalability. Like, I guess I'm no longer looking at things like personas as anything different than just like marketing setups, right? Like if I was running like pay per click or SEO or any of those things, I can just now set up campaigns precisely to target each of the different types of people, right? Different types of industries that would book the bounce house. Like I think for the first time the combinations are kind of unlimited. So I don't know, sky's the limit, Don.
No, I mean, I've been impressed. I mean, because I put pretty much on the test I did, I put quite a bit into it from, the primary and secondary nodes and the trigger keywords and different personas and things like that. And the content, the old content, comparing it to the new content was a world of difference. And especially with the personas, it was speaking to the parent. I mean, it just, when I was reading it, I was like, wow, it was on point. I have to admit, which is great. So that's what we were hoping. And now with this session today, it kind of opens up our mind about, how much more we can use this for from content and not just on the website, for our Google business post. And, we don't do a lot of social media, at least not right now for our clients, but at least from a Google business post that we do for our clients. So definitely
Okay,
very
so
helpful.
for saying that, so I want you to do this real quick, Ed. Go to um, the Content Maxima. I forget the heck we call stuff. I was the
Our
code reviewer
website or our
whenever.
app?
The app. Sorry. I forget what we even called it. So I can't even say what. So go to, yeah, socials. Have you run that one yet, Don?
I did run that one. Yes. Yeah.
So
I
that's where you
ran
can,
that one.
let's say you have a blog article, right? You can upload the article and do that and tell how many you want, and it'll create each one of those is like in the world now we call it agents. I don't even like the word agent because all it is a different uh, at the end of the day, it's different code I send to the AI based with different topics, but they call those agents now, but whatever. So in that sense, we've got those agents. So each one of those is going to write the social profile, the social posts already trigger or already, I ain't the right word, made for Facebook, made for Instagram, made for
Mhm.
Twitter. Like it's not going to give you a Twitter one that's over 140 characters because I've wrote the agent and gave it rules and everything to say, take this article and write me 5 Twitter posts that are all different. So that's not just saying the same thing over and over. And it'll give you different. So immediately right there is an entire social media thing for a new article we just did, or a new page, or a new this, or a new that. Right. So that's this we didn't initially keep, but because I took this off this used to be a desktop app and people started complaining. They're like, wait, bring that back because we really, really wanted that. So I added it, right? It wasn't in our, we were kind of coming this from just, we wanted to just kind of keep our focus in the data analytics side of stuff because there's so many content writers out there, right? But people
Yeah.
liked that one. So I just did it. So, right. So he uploads an article and right there is now 5 Facebook posts. You could literally
Mhm.
just copy paste, right?
Mhm.
Now for Facebook, I guess, in the Facebook world, everybody uses emojis and all that stuff, but you may have to add some emojis or whatever. I'm not a social media guy. I try to stay off of all social media as best I can, but you already have now, here's like a social, like we did article, here's 5 things that we can drip out over the next 2 weeks for the exact same stuff. Or here's 5 GBPs that we can use for this article. And what it does, it takes that article and it writes based on what that article says, not just a single word, right? It kind of stays locked into what the article is about so that even your posts are highly linked and targeted to that article. And then so I just ran real quick while you're doing that. So I ran a linguistic scan. I'm going to share my screen just real quick, Ed, so you don't have to run it since I already did it.
Yeah, hold on.
Or can you
I
open
gotta
me
give
up?
you permission, right?
I see how it is. He's afraid I'll share stuff.
Yeah,
Block me.
exactly. No, I can't even find it because I got which screen I'm on. Hold on.
Yeah. See all
Make.
your fancy office setup. Too many screens makes it
Oh no,
harder.
I have too many screens, man.
Okay. So share screen. Um, screen share. Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. Is it big enough? I always keep my, there we go. That's better. So
Yeah.
something I just jumped on here, right? Because we haven't talked about this at all. And I don't know anything about linguistics. So I ran this scan and I just put in bounce houses. I don't even know if that was the right term, right? I delete stuff out of my head when I don't. But what this is telling you, here's some of the key cores concepts. Here's some domain specific jargon, right? So bounce house safety. I don't know if you guys talk about bounce house safety on your website. If you don't,
We
I would
do.
add something. I'd have a
Mhm.
safety page, right? And then something else that jumped out to me, right? This is more the fluffy stuff. Talk about how it's joyful and blah blah blah. But it's telling me that you talk about anchor systems, you talk about the value, the valves, or however all of that works. I don't know what that means. But this is just something else. I think if you were going to talk to someone about, like, the expert of all things bounce houses, they're going to want to know what you know about the anchor systems and the safety and the different things if you really know about bounce houses, right? So those are different. That's kind of what this linguistic scan works for. It helps to pick up different, looks at the different ways in which to talk about it, and then pick up different jargon that might be in the system that you may have missed, right? Here, you guys understand this because you're deep in this, right? This might be where we came up with, like, if you put soccer in there or football, it's going to have a jargon list. It's going to tell you, okay, if you are talking to people, use some of this jargon and you're going to fit right in as if you know what you're talking about, even though you might not completely know what that jargon is, right? Now, if you're really going to go in there, you need to maybe research. If something comes in here, you're like, what the hell is that? My thought would be, okay, I better research that because all the LLMs, all the different models, all the different ranking algorithms and things out there are building on top of this. And if they think that's something that's a jargon or topics or words that are related, and I don't have a clue what that is, I better learn what that is. And it may be something I never even thought of that I need to start including into my, whether it's a content to tell the homeowner, right? You get talking to a mom, she's not going to worry about how you anchor it to the ground, right? But having it on your website lets the algorithms know, okay, these people, not only do they know parents, they know about the fun part of it, but they also have the safety part, the way you anchor this thing, the way you do all these different pieces. So that's kind of the different pieces that I just, thought of, right?
It's
Easy
funny you say a
setup. Is it
mom's
weather
not going to
resistant?
ask about that, Rob, because we just rented one for my 3-year-old and we have some power lines in the backyard, right? And just being like
Mm-hmm.
ultra cautious parents, we're literally like, how do you anchor this down? Because we do not need it blowing into those power lines over there. That was the very first
Well,
thing,
let,
like
let me restate
beanbag
what I
safe.
said. A Gen X mom is not going to ask about safety. They're going to be
Yeah.
like, rub some dirt on it.
Yeah, my
Here's
wife
some,
was like, I need to make sure
yeah,
this is anchored. And I was just
yeah.
like, yeah. I was like, are you doing just stakes or you got sandbags too? Like, let me know how you put it down because before we hire you, we got to make sure it doesn't blow away because we have a really windy backyard. It's like a wind tunnel. Like wind comes flying through it. So we put up this bouncy house and I was like, yeah, we don't want our 3-year-old to fly away into the power line. So
Unless
Right.
you're recording it,
Right.
and then it'd be cool. So yeah, that's Gen X difference, bro. I'm
yeah.
just making sure we got enough Band-Aids and Mercura foam or whatever that crap they used to put on us when we were little, the little red crap that dyed your hand, and they're like, don't put that on kids anymore. It hurts them. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I used to get from my grandma. Burnt like hell. That'll make it better. Okay, right. So that's you can kind of, and like you're saying, and like Ed was saying, our excitement in this now is it started with just those two modules. And then these others have just kind of fell out as we're looking at the information we're giving us. Oh, well, what if we do this? What if we do that? And then we're like, okay, you could take this data and feed it into a custom GPT. And now you start interacting with GPTs based off that data to then even dig deeper. Okay, well, if I am targeting a mom who's a millennial that's extremely worried about safety, what are the things I should cover for that type of person? And it's probably going to bring up safety and all that kind of stuff because they may be more apt for that and things like that.
Yeah. Awesome. Great information.
So
Find me a
I hope that
CTA
answered
in
some
that.
questions and whatever. If you guys have more, I mean, I can go a little bit longer. I don't want to keep anybody's time, but
Yeah. Do one last thing for me, Rob. Just look, there's a call to
mhm.
action area somewhere in there. I just right or no, that would have been in the pathways probably. Maybe there's a CTA. Go back up. I think you scrolled past. Up, up,
Yeah,
up,
I
up.
scrolled fast.
Stop.
Sorry.
Effective
Right there. It says
CTAs.
effective CTA
Back down a
right
little.
below.
A little bit down. Yeah, so
Yep.
like this is cool too because you got to think AI and all these algorithms and bots that have been scraping the internet see how every bounce house company in the world gets you to book. So things like book your bounce house today for a fun-filled event, like or reserve now and make your party unforgettable. Like you might have been able to come up with that on your own, but knowing that it's in here as these are the effective CTAs, like these are what these bounce house companies are saying. Like it's not just generating an idea, like it's seeing like, no, this is the consistent pattern that bounce houses are saying is book your bounce house for a fun-filled event. Like those little things are really helpful as you're like doing conversion optimization and all that too.
No, absolutely. No. Fantastic stuff. Anybody else got any more questions while we're winding down? Brian, David?
Nope.
No, this is great.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely helped more than just watching Bradley's webinar on it and us playing with it.
Yeah, well, Bradley got sent a link and that's it, and he ran it, and he's like, "What the hell, guys? I need to get." So we've got a webinar coming up with him. We'll go into detail with it. I don't know how long his webinars run, but we're gonna do a webinar for his audience. So
Yeah, he said in July. I watched his
yep,
latest one, or the other one. I don't know, it was 2 weeks ago, and he said y'all got a schedule in July. So
yeah,
Yep.
All right. Well, I
no,
think
I
that answered
appreciate
a
it.
lot.
This is awesome.
That answered a lot for us, Ed and Rob. We really appreciate your time. We're excited about the this new tool. I mean, we certainly are. So, um, and I don't have any more questions right now.
Yeah, just keep
So
in
I
touch if
really,
you do. We're here for you. Like this
yeah,
is our job now is to just be supportive and help you guys crack whatever industry you're into. So it's gonna be the fun part for Rob and I. So we look forward
sure.
to all that.
Well, don't worry. If we have questions, we'll be reaching out. Okay. So no
Appreciate
doubt
it.
about that. So, well, hey, we appreciate your time today and you all have a great weekend. Okay.
All right, yeah,
how
happy
you guys
Friday,
too. It
Have a
was
good
everybody.
good
weekend,
catching up with
guys.
you guys.
Bye.
Thank y'all.
Okay.
See ya.
Okay. All right. Bye.